One of the key concepts of modern democracy is the separation of power. But what is the separation of power exactly, and why is it so important, especially today? First, let me give you a little bit of background on this concept. But to do so, we would need to go back in time. In the year 1748, a man by the name of Charles-Louis de Secondat, Baron de la Brédée de Montesquieu, or just simply Montesquieu, who was a French political philosopher during the Enlightenment era, published a book called De l'Esprit des Lois, which in English translates to the Spirit of the Laws. In this book he describes the tripartite structure. Here, the power of the government should be divided into three separate bodies, so three different branches. These are the three. Number 1, the legislative branch. They make the laws. If they feel like there is something that should be put into law, they just write it, vote on it, and boom, it's a law. Then we have the executive branch. They execute the laws. They have to enforce what's passed by the legislator. It doesn't matter if they agree with it or not, they have to make what's written on the paper into action. And lastly, the judicial branch. They interpret the law. By that I mean when a law is passed or enforced, they make sure that it follows the rules placed in the Constitution, which is a legal document with a list of rules that sets the basis of a country. Let me give you an example. Congress or Parliament passes a law that prohibits the use and distribution of any alcoholic drink. The executive makes sure that the law gets enforced. They direct different departments to make sure that the law is followed by the people. Then the judicial branch comes in and says that the law is unconstitutional because the Constitution states that there should be no law prohibiting the consumption or distribution of a consumable substance, so the law gets withdrawn. Now, except for maybe the legislative branch, in theory all three of these branches should be equal. Each branch can check the other branch's power. If the other branch is overreaching its power, another branch has the ability to override them. No branch can have more power than the other. However, in practice, this isn't really the case. In practice, there is always one branch that always seems to have the most power. No matter what country it is, it's always the same branch who seems to be at the center of a government. Let's play a little game. I'll give you 5 seconds to guess which branch you think it is. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's the executive branch, of course. But why? Why is this the case? Well, the executive branch often has one person who has a lot of say within that branch, unlike the legislative branch, who often consist of a great amount of people who each have the same amount of power. They all have one vote and one seat in Parliament or Congress. But you may be asking, Mr. Crows, why is this topic so important now? Well, let's just say that arguably the most powerful person in the world is becoming even more powerful because of the lack of checks and balances that exist in his country. I wonder who that is. The Wall Street Journal actually does a really good job at explaining how Trump has consolidated more power towards the executive branch. I'll link it in the description. It's definitely worth a watch. Now, this concept of the separation of power is different for every country. You can especially see this difference when comparing presidential countries and parliamentary countries. For example, in the UK, the head of the executive branch, the Prime Minister, is literally a part of the legislative branch, and in the Netherlands, there isn't even a Supreme Court who has the power to claim a law as unconstitutional. So every country is different, but the principle of the concept still has to stay. There can't be one body, one branch, one person who rules over everything, because or else it will just be a dictatorship.